Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I'm your host, Grant, for One Fair Review, and today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. We're going to deviate a little bit from the usual channel thing. I am working on another video recently. If you guys haven't seen my post, I'm going to discuss it a little bit here. I'm working on a decent size video about anime, and it's going to take a little bit of while. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's not that hard, but it's just taking a little bit of time, and especially with current events going on, it's just taking a little bit longer to do. So in the meantime, I wanted to deviate a little bit, even though this video is semi within the topic of the channel, Japan related, and talk about a movie that was brought up and a video game that I've been looking at for a little while now. More specifically, the game I'm talking about today, or I'm not really talking about a game, it's briefly going to be mentioned, is Ghost of Tsushima. This is a game I've been looking forward to for a couple weeks now, ever since they showed off some gameplay footage. I've been pretty excited for it because I've always wanted a samurai game that is not fantastical or weird. It was more grounded. I've always wanted a samurai game that's more grounded in reality. So I am looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima, but that's not really the topic of today's video, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, considering you've probably read the title already. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I more saw on the Ghost of Tsushima subreddit. Yes, I know, I do frequent some subreddits, but it is not a big hobby of mine. Now, on this subreddit, there are various things, people asking questions, people talking about different things, but one of the posts that I saw a few days back had to do with The Last Samurai. Now, naturally, the subreddit has various topics that it talks about. Anybody could post there, and there are tons of things. I usually respond to questions, but one of them was more of a recommendation. And this one was on The Last Samurai. Now, whether or not you'd recommend The Last Samurai for somebody to watch that in preparation for Ghost of Tsushima, that is your deal. You could say yes or no, or maybe so, whatever you might think. Somebody recommended it, and there was a few people down below that were talking about it, and a lot of the things they had to say were pretty incorrect, and I'm assuming that they didn't watch the movie, which is what they said. But the one that drew my attention the most was one comment where somebody said something on the lines of, unfortunately I couldn't get back to it, but the person said something on the lines of, oh, is this another Hollywood movie where the white man goes to the Japanese people in dire need of help and saves them with his superiority, and then in the end all the Japanese people love the white man, and it is another one of Hollywood's beautiful movies like that. Now, admittedly, that is a case with Hollywood. Hollywood does like to do that sometimes, but yeah, so somebody put this there, and a bunch of people were replying to it saying, yes, that is pretty much the story. Yes, that is what the movie is about. A lot of people were just saying how the movie was whitewashing and racist and all sorts of things about The Last Samurai. Without a doubt in my mind, these are people who have not watched The Last Samurai, and that is what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about The Last Samurai, and I'm going to defend it to a certain extent. Now, I want you guys to watch the entire review, if you can, and hear out my full thoughts, because you will know that from watching my whole video, you will realize that while I do like the movie, I do have my own issues with it, and I will talk about that a little bit more in depth later. But first, let me just discuss what the actual story is about The Last Samurai. Now, here's the thing. I remember a long time ago when the movie was coming out, I remember a classmate of mine who said that, oh, the movie is really stupid. Why is Tom Cruise the Last Samurai? That is weird. A white guy being the Last Samurai? What is this movie? It's so dumb. Now, I don't just associate this phrase with this guy, because after all, I did see it on the subreddit. Some people said that. But also, just this was a common thing that people were saying back then, and it was one of the reasons for not watching the movie. And a lot of people, still to this day, probably without watching the movie, think that Tom Cruise is the Last Samurai. Now, on one hand, I can't fault them, because from the advertising and the poster, the image, the cover of the movie, it is of Tom Cruise in samurai armor, and it says in big letters, The Last Samurai, starring Tom Cruise. Now, that is more a fault of the advertising agencies, in my opinion. I don't think, I'm pretty sure if they had put, Ken Watanabe there, not that many people would be confused. But anyways, this movie was done by Warner Brothers, which is one of the biggest studios in the world. And the movie stars Tom Cruise, naturally, but the movie is not really about Tom Cruise, even though it kind of is. The movie is actually about Ken Watanabe, who is the actual last samurai who wants to keep the traditions going during the Meiji Restoration. Now, okay, a quick history lesson. The Meiji Restoration, for those of you who don't know, was pretty much a time when the emperor was brought back into power of Japan and political power, and this actually led to enormous changes into the Japanese political and social structure, and this spanned both the late Edo period and the beginning of the Meiji era. It was also during the Restoration that Japan rapidly industrialized and adopted Western ideas and production methods, and this was mostly in due part that Japan was afraid of the Western powers after they were forced to open up, and the Russian Empire, the British Empire, and the American Empire, if you will, kept coming in and out freely and trading. So Japan was afraid that it would become a puppet like China was to many different nations, and it didn't want to be that, so they kind of forced themselves to industrialize, to get the foreign influence. They allowed that, and they just built themselves up to this empire because they wanted to be respected, and they didn't want to be referred to as the backwater of Asia anymore. Naturally, as most of you would assume, a lot of samurai, even though they did join the new government, there were a lot of samurai who were against this idea, and they didn't want the idea. They didn't want foreign influence on the country. They believed it to be an unnecessary and a bad thing for Japan as a whole. So there were people that fought against it, and that's kind of what this movie is based off of, and I'll get into that a little bit more. As for Tom Cruise isn't really a samurai at all in the movie. He portrays a United States captain of the 7th Cavalry Regiment, which is very far off from the actual samurai. And the last samurai is Ken Watanabe. Interesting enough, the film's plot was actually inspired by a real-life event, the 1877 Satsuma Rebellion, and this was led by Takamori Saigo, and he was against the westernization of Japan and the foreign powers, and that's more or less what the movie is based on. Now, I will clarify that it's not completely historically accurate, which was a problem for a lot of people, but that is neither here nor there. The actual story of The Last Samurai is about Tom Cruise, who is this drunk, miserable, supposed war hero who slaughtered Indians. And the United States and everybody likes to consider him a war hero, and he is considered a very good soldier, very good with strategy. So naturally, seeing how everybody kind of idolizes him, he basically not only hates himself, he hates life, and he hates America. And that's why he's so miserable and drunk and has these constant nightmares. His old commander gets in contact with him, which he also has this hatred towards, and pretty much he gets hired on by the Japanese government officials to train the Japanese Imperial Army. This is what leads him going to Japan, and you get to see him interact a little bit with Japan, how it's getting more industrialized and how foreign powers are, you could definitely see the foreign influence on it. And he's trying to train these soldiers. Now, there's a certain point in the movie where they decide that they are going to fight the Samurai Rebellion that's happening, and they believe that they are ready to face them. Tom Cruise, of course, just says, no, we are not ready, but what do you think happens? They tell him to go anyways. He manages to lose his first battle against the samurai, and Ken Watanabe, who is the samurai in question, captures him because he wants to learn about his enemy, and also because he saw him stand his own during a fight for a little bit, and he managed to kill one of his fellow samurai. That being said, when people say that, oh, this is another one where the Japanese people, oh, they need his help and they like him a lot, and that could not be further from the truth. Actually, everybody in the village hates him, and they constantly kick his ass when it comes to fighting. Constantly. All this, the samurai kick his ass completely. But of course the movie progresses and he finds peace and learns the meaning of life through the Japanese people and their traditions. Now the reason why he chooses to side with the samurai is because of everything they did for him, nursing him back to health, teaching him all these things, and also because he feels that he owes them, more specifically the family, for the guilt of killing somebody. I won't spoil everything, but the movie is about finding peace and how traditions are important. That's pretty much what I'm going to say about that. Ken Watanabe honestly is the heart and soul of the samurai in this movie, and he's the one that inspires the country Again, it wasn't Tom Cruise. And this is the problem I more or less had with the subreddit and what they said about it, or some people were saying on the subreddit. And it's a big misunderstanding about The Last Samurai. There are movies that from Hollywood that are insultingly stupid, and how they treat the Japanese tradition and the samurai. One, more specifically, 47 Ronin, which I've always seen as just a huge waste of time and a horrible film. The Last Samurai actually does respect the Japanese traditions and respects Japanese history enough to where it's never insulting about it. But to say that Tom Cruise is the white man who comes save the Japanese people, it's very wrong. Like I said, The Last Samurai is Ken Watanabe, and that's what the film focuses on the most. He is the heart and soul. And in every scene, he is the wise one. He is the one who is helping his people, which is not very historically accurate, but whatever. That's what they went for. Tom Cruise in the movie is more of this observer kind of character, observing everything and writing about it in the journal. That's the big thing about the movie. It's more about Tom Cruise's journal. He's writing about his experience in Japan, and that's kind of the whole story point. You'll find him narrating throughout the entire movie, and then at the end he gives the book to somebody. Again, I'm not going to spoil it. Really, his goal though in the movie is that he wants to get back at his commander, which he has this huge disdain towards, and he also wants to find meaning in life. He wants to find peace because he is this tortured soul, if you will. Again, the movie is not perfect. It does have its flaws. One thing that always kind of annoyed me, for the most part, the movie, I like it, but Tom Cruise does a little too much in the movie. I'm okay when there's a point in the movie where they come to try to assassinate Ken Watanabe with ninjas, nonetheless, which is its own thing, but whatever. And Tom Cruise is the one who notifies him. I find that very unbelievable that no other samurai or no other watchmen were looking for that, and Tom Cruise, being the one in the audience, just so happens to see the ninja assassins. So that was a little bit weird. But afterwards, when he starts to fight, it's fine because he's not perfect. He's doing an okay job of it. And towards the end of the movie, he does do a little too much to help the samurai. But again, the movie's not about him. And at the end of the film, Tom Cruise isn't the heart of it. The heart of it was Ken Watanabe. And he's the one who inspires the country. He's the one who inspires the Imperial Army, not Tom Cruise. Sure, Tom Cruise helped a little bit along the way, but every plan in motion in the movie was always done through Ken Watanabe or his fellow samurai. Now, the reception to the movie is actually very well. It got critical praise. It also was one of the highest grossing movies for the time. It earned around 13.7 billion yen, which is $123 million, and it was one of the highest grossing foreign movies in Japan. And notice how I say in Japan. In the United States, it was a little bit less so. And it was not critically praised. It was actually mixed, I would say. I won't say negative, it was mixed reviews. A lot of people were talking about the historical inaccuracies with the movie, and that was a big problem. And a lot of people were saying that it was racist. But the thing is that the movie, this is actually, in my opinion, this is one of the few examples of a Western movie from Hollywood actually respecting the traditions and the values of the Japanese people. It paints it in a positive light, and it does a good job to respect its history. Now, yes, it's not historically accurate. I understand that, and while that is a mild annoyance, it's a movie. It's not a documentary. It was a creative choice, and honestly, that doesn't bother me. And really, if we're going to be talking about historical inaccuracies when it comes to these kind of stuff, I must mention Ghost of Tsushima, this is the subreddit, of course, where I saw these people talking about it. Ghost of Tsushima isn't a particularly historically accurate game. I must clarify, I'm excited for the game, but it is not historically accurate. One of the things in particular I noticed was the armor and the weapons that were used in the gameplay trailer. They were completely inaccurate for the time. They were using Sengoku Jidai gear, which Jidai means period, by the way, which was way after the Kamakura Jidai, which is when the Mongol invasion took place. Another thing in the trailer, in the story trailer that I will show a clip of right now, the character pretty much says that, oh, this isn't the way of the samurai, which, no, that is the way of the samurai. That is what the samurai would do back in the Kamakura Jidai. They would find any way that they could get the high ground, if you will, over their opponents. And if they were able, if the samurai was skilled enough to disarm his enemy, he would then use that moment to slit their throat. He would not show them mercy. This is more a concept that happened during the Edo Jidai. This is where the samurai, this was the time of peace, this was after the warring states, this was after the Mongol invasion, long after that. And during this peace, that is where the samurai nobility and the whole honorable samurai that we know today were more commonplace. And definitely it was not during the Kamakura Jidai. And honestly, I could do this forever. I could talk about the historical inaccuracies of Ghost of Tsushima all day long. But the thing is, I don't want to do that because it doesn't matter to me. Same thing with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, even though it has a lot of historical inaccuracies, mainly one of the funnier ones being the Spartan Navy, which never existed in real life. Even though it is completely historically inaccurate, I still love the game. And Ghost of Tsushima, even though it is historically inaccurate, I know what they're going for. They're going for the more cinematic Kurosawa, samurai kind of movie feel. And that's very respectable, and I like that, and I prefer that. I mean, it is a game, so they can take whatever liberties they want, and I will have no problem with it. Same thing could be said with The Last Samurai. For the most part, The Last Samurai respects the history, it respects traditions of Japan, and I do like the movie for it. Is it my favorite samurai movie? No. And would I say that I would recommend it over, say, Ran or any Kurosawa movie? Definitely not, but it is a good film, and I just want to clear this up, clear the air, because I did see that on the subreddit, and I do notice some people say that to this day. No, The Last Samurai is a fine movie, it is a good movie, and it is not about Tom Cruise, it is about Ken Watanabe, The Last Samurai. And would I recommend it? Sure, if you're interested, go ahead, check it out. But I don't think we should really judge a movie by its cover. And I don't think we should judge a movie by its historical inaccuracies unless that's the whole point of the movie. It wants to be historically accurate. The same way we shouldn't judge Ghost of Tsushima for its historical inaccuracies. It's a game. They're going for a cinematic samurai kind of movie. That's going to be fine. I'm sure the game's going to be great, and I can't wait to play it. So that's really all I wanted to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I hope you guys are patient enough to wait a little bit for my next anime video. It's going to be a decently long one, I think, but a little while for it to come out, like I said. So this will fill in as filler, I guess. Just a little kind of off the cuff kind of rant that I want to do. Anyways, have you guys seen The Last Samurai? If you have, let me know down below. Did you love it, hate it, don't care about it, never seen it in your life, you're even mad at me for bringing it up? Let me know down below. Are you guys looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima? Let me know down below. Have you seen it? Do you love it, hate it? Never want to see it again? Do you never want to play it? I mean, it's confusing. I never talk about games that way. Are you guys excited for Ghost of Tsushima? Let me know down below. Tell me what your guys' thoughts on that game is. If you guys would like me to make more videos on Ghost of Tsushima, talking about more historical facts about it, let me know. That'd be kind of interesting, actually. That'd be fun to do, but I don't know if I would do it. But if you guys do ask, that would be an entertaining video to make. Anyways, I'm your host, Grant for One Fair Review. As always, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.